Okay. All right. Ooh, I just had a big old pancake. I make a pancake in a cast iron pan, 10.5 inch, with maple syrup and butter. And with the mix, I add like 3 eggs and walnut oil, a whole bunch of other stuff. And I have been porking up, man. I got to be 198 pounds right now. We gotta cut some weight. Anyhow, today is episode 1 of The One That Got Away. There literally could be hundreds of these episodes. I was sitting here thinking about it today, and I thought, all right, let's just do this. And the reason that I'm doing, like, what kicked this off in my mind is I have this friend Sabo, who's a conservative street artist. You should check him out if you're interested in that sort of thing. He does a podcast. I don't typically watch it. I got other things I'm more interested in, and I know him, so I know what he thinks about stuff, you know. But I caught a tail end of something the other day. It could have been yesterday. I don't know why this is bothering me right now. It's warm today. It's like 80 degrees here in LA. But this morning it was cold. That's the thing about Los Angeles, by the way. It could be cool enough at night to, oh Jesus, this friggin' thing. It could be cool enough at night to where you need a coat. But then in the daytime it get hot enough where you're friggin' sweating, man. So Sabo the other day, I caught the end of his thing and he used the word hand job, which instantly made me think of a funny story. I mean, I come on, men and women alike. We've all got funny hand job stories. Let's just be honest. Most of you just wouldn't want to talk to the world about it. And so, just to be funny, I typed in, I once got a hand job in an emergency room, which made him laugh his ass off, and the people in his chat there were laughing, and I thought, that is a pretty good story. And then I kind of forgot about it. And then today I was working here in the shop milling some lumber, and I started thinking about this girl. And I was like, yeah, this is an interesting story. And I thought, well, I'll just tell it. I was going to save it for the Sunday night chat. But then I thought, there's so many of these stories, I can just have a whole separate, show, whatever you want to call it. It's not a show. It's just me talking to my friggin' camera. Thank you for being here. Tell your friends. I just thought this would be kind of good. It would be kind of fun and funny, I suppose. And it might seem like disparaging the women in the stories, but the reality is I'm also pointing out my own ridiculous nature, right? The crazy nonsense that goes on in my own mind. For the 15 women that actually watch this channel, I suspect there'll only be like 2 or 3 left after a couple of these episodes. And caught you before you just slammed the universe, you know. The wind will pick that door up and it'll slam right in the middle of when I'm talking. So I just stopped that from happening. But that whole disturbance there was probably worse than the door slamming. Anyhow, as I was saying, there will be some women that don't appreciate this, but again, this is me really pointing out my own problems because we're going to get into the nitty gritty of this. I'm not going to hold too much back. I probably won't use real names most of the time. You have to keep in mind, I still know a lot of these people. A lot of these stories involve friends I've had for decades, going way back. I mean, keep in mind, I've been dating for well over 40 years. Dating. For a long time when I was young, it was just called, we used to call it sport fucking. That's really what was going on. You were just having a good time. And again, I've said this before, I didn't know that what I was doing was atypical. I thought everybody was doing it. So, but anyhow, this story it starts off kind of, this was originally what was going on in my mind, was, it's kind of like the best and worst first date ever. But then I'm going to get into how things progressed after the initial event. So I met this woman. She sought me out. I did a project on a restaurant here in Los Angeles. And this woman has to be a chef. And so she was chefing at this restaurant, and she saw the work that I had done, and she looked me up, and she got interested in me. So she started sending me notes, and I was, I'm a pretty nice guy. Many of you know that if you've reached out to me and called me or sent me notes or whatever. I tend to talk to people, and it's cool. So that's how it went down. And you guys might recall I happen to be Greek. My dad was 100% Greek. And this woman happens to be Greek, but blonde hair, blue eyes. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm a sucker for blue or green eyes and beauty. And she's just drop dead gorgeous to look at her in the face. And, we're talking, and I looked her up, and I noticed that all of her pictures were just of her face. So my initial thing was, are you fat? You got to be fat, right? Because all your pictures are just of your face. And she laughed that off. She had a great sense of humor, and she kind of played it like, well, I'm not fat, but I could lose a few pounds. Just like me. So I was cautious. I'm not into fat. I'm just not into it. But okay. I could be into it for an hour or maybe or something. It just depends on the person. So, anyhow, we talked a few times, and she hit me up one day. So it was a Saturday, and I remember this because I'd gotten up early and I worked my ass off all day, real physically, and I was real beat up. And it was I think it was after 9 o'clock at night or something, and I was in for the night. That's it. I had already smoked a little grass, and I was in for the night. And she called me up, and she was out, and she wanted me to meet up with her. And she was just very suggestive about it. Come on out. She made it sound real good. So I thought, all right, I'll go out. So I get on my motorcycle. I was riding a Triumph Thruxton at the time. It's a cafe racer. It's got clip-ons. And she wanted me to meet her up here at, if you go up Gower, you go to Franklin, you make a right, and you got the Scientology building on the right across the street from that is one of the coolest little blocks in Los Angeles. At least it used to be. There's a restaurant there called Birds. I used to hang out there before Birds ever even existed. The story of Birds is there was a woman that was a waitress there, and she ended up hooking up with this rich guy, and he bought her the place, and she was able to create this restaurant. Things like that happen in Los Angeles. And there's a bookstore there, and there used to be an old record store there, and an Italian restaurant. It used to be a real cool place to be in the 90s. And this story is 2010. I forget the exact date, but I think it was in August of 2010. So, excuse me, it's that pancake is coming back up. So I get on the bike, I ride up there, I park, I go to the joint, I meet her, and she is wearing like this dress that's way too tight for her, and she could lose a few pounds. I'm just going to put it to you like that. She's not obese. She's not some giant fat person, but she's way more plump than I would typically go for. But I'm a gentleman, and I'm a nice guy. So, all right, I meet her, we talk, we go into this joint, we have a beer. I remember specifically thinking it was weird in the place because I felt old at the time, which is funny to say because this is 14 years ago. Now I wouldn't have any problem, but for whatever reason it was 14 years ago, I had a different mindset. There's a lot of young people around. I just felt out of place and whatever. But she was very pleasant. She was very nice. I don't even think I finished my beer. And by the time we had agreed to meet and everything, it was already getting kind of late. I think it was like around 9:30 or something when she called me. It took her a while to convince me to go out in the first place, so you can imagine. So I'm like, look, I'm done with this. I don't feel comfortable here. Let's go for a walk. So it's a big block there. So we walk all the way around the block, and we're talking. We're having a great time. I'm making her laugh. She's making me laugh. She's a very nice person. We get in her car. We sit down in the car. We keep chatting. And now I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just getting tired, man. And I told her, I was like, I think I got to go home and go to bed. And she's like, well, no, she didn't want the night to end. And I guess I could be like a lot of guys. I was a little obtuse about what was going on there, and I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy who's always looking to score, right? Just to get laid or something. I could care less. When I was young, fine. But believe me, that wore itself out a long time ago. It's fine. I want to do it. I'd like to be doing it more. But that's not my main focus on things. So she's just blatant about it, right? And she's like, I don't have my kid tonight. I want to have a good time. So I'm like, all right. You just twist my arm. You talked me into it. So she drove me into my car, got to the bike, and I gave her directions to the house, which was real simple. Straight down Gower, make a left, make a right, boom, I'm right there. So she heads off. I get on the bike. I'm cruising down Gower. I get to Hollywood Boulevard. It's a red light. Light turns green. Two cars that were heading west in front of me decide to blow that red light and make a left-hand turn, which is fine. So they do that. I'm behind them, and both cars pull over to the right like they're pulling over. So I give them a wide berth and gun it with the throttle, and just as I do that, the first car pulls a U-turn right in front of me. And I just really revved it, man. And, I'm on, again, Cafe Racer. And so this car comes out, and I'm like, well, I'm going to hit this car. And it's amazing how you can actually slow down time in those situations where so much is happening, but your brain can work so fast. It's like time slows down, and you can make all these calculations to keep yourself from dying. This has happened to me multiple times. Maybe it's happened to you. So I say to myself, okay, I'm going to steer to the left a little bit, go with this car. It'll give me a few extra milliseconds to work my body, so I'm not going to go. I didn't want to hit that car so hard that I went over the car. So I did that, and I was able to kind of lay the bike down. And I just went right into that car, boom, and I hit that car with my helmet, the side of my head, my right arm and shoulder, and I'm laying there, and it's a girl, two girls in the car, female driver, didn't check her mirrors. She's trying to open the door, she's whacking me in the head with the door. So, I get up and I push the door back, I'm like, hey, I'm down here, what the fuck? And I realize as I stand up that this hand is just dangling. I've got no control over it. And so I take this one and I go to grab it, and I can feel with my thumb that there's no bone here anymore. It's just been pulverized. It's just nothing but mush. And that's when I realize this wrist is broken as well. So I do this and I pick the hand up, and they back up like they want to pull away, and they switch seats. And as they do that, I get up and I walk over and I sit on the hood of their car like this, not letting them go anywhere. And now there's witnesses, people have seen everything that's happening, the police show up, an ambulance shows up. That's a whole story in itself, but we'll just forget about that for the moment. I had the cop take my phone out and dial, this is the first number, dial that number, tell this girl who's waiting for me in my house, she was waiting just to have a good old time. She was getting herself all ready, you know what I'm saying? So, calls her, and she shows up, and they tell her it's going to be cheaper for her to take me to the hospital than do the ambulance ride. So she takes me over to, whatever that is that Kaiser over there on Sunset? There's a hospital right there. So we get in there, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we have to wait until about 7 o'clock in the morning until this guy shows up to actually work on this wrist. And so they got me on painkillers, and she sits there with me all night and gives me a hand job. So it's like best and worst first date ever, right? That's the definition of your best and worst. I could have died. I got 2 broken wrists. I end up with a bunch of surgeries, cadaver bone, plate in my wrist, and everything else. So that's the story. But then I started thinking about her, and we had this ongoing relationship for a while. And I just thought, well, maybe this is interesting to people because, again, like I said, I'm a sucker for a pretty face and a good attitude, and she had things about her. She had nice hands, really cute feet, things like that kind of turned me on, man. The blonde thing and great smile and all that. But there's always a but. When we hung out and the more I got to know her, kind of the less I liked her. I mean, looking back on it, which is kind of the theme of this idea here, the one that got away, because you can look back on some of these things and you can think, I could have maybe dealt with that. Maybe it wasn't such a big deal. Hindsight's 2020, right? But you guys can tell me. So part of the issue with her, and this is not just her, it's all women, right? A lot of women, anyhow, can have this overinflated sense of ego, right? They can really think their shit doesn't stink because men. It's because of men. So if you're kind of cute, doesn't matter anything else about you, you're going to get attention from men. If you're getting attention from men, you think, yeah, I must be something. I must be pretty hot. I get all this attention from men. But, a lot of the men you're getting attention from are only giving it to you because they want to stick it in. It's not like there's not anything really that special about you, right? So you got to keep that shit in check, man. Ladies, little advice. But she had that. And she had a couple other issues that kind of just bothered me constantly with the self-promotion, which I kind of understand. But also she was real big on networking, which I also understand, but trying to use people in her life to set you up with other people to make herself look good so that it would help her in life. Maybe everybody does that. I don't know. I'm not super keen on it. I do put people together a lot, but I don't try to get anything out of it. And she was constantly trying to talk me into doing things for people that she knew. And always saying something like, oh, you should, if you give them a real good deal to work out for you because this person knows all these people. And that's bullshit. That has never once happened to me. Never. Never have I given anybody a deal, in hopes of them introducing me to some rich and famous person or designer or whatever that would lead to more work. That has never happened, not once. It's been said to me dozens of times. It's never once happened. So, and by that time, I already knew that. This is bullshit. So she was always trying to get me to do things. But she did do one nice thing to a certain extent. She was the one who convinced me to make the cutting boards. Her being a chef, And I made her one, and then people saw it, and they flipped out. And at that time, I had a lot of scrap hardwoods laying around, a lot of exotics. And so I took all that wood, I milled it up, and for those of you that have known me for a long time, so 14 years ago was the first time I suppose I started making cutting boards. And I did many series of these cutting boards, and I was selling them for, back then, it got to the point where I was selling for $350 plus shipping, so you were spending over $400 basically, because they were heavy, 2¼ inches thick. Eventually they got to that point, 2¼ kind of boat-shaped integral handle that was designed into them. Probably 50% of these boards or more were never even used because they were so beautiful, people were afraid to use them, but they were made to really work. And that was all because of her. So that was a good thing, right? But whenever we hung out, not whenever, but quite often, bad things would also happen. Like, for instance, first time we go out, I did not want to go out, I get in this accident, I break both my wrists. And I remember one time I had to give her a ride home, and I'm driving my old truck, and the whole shifter came out of the transmission, and I had to deal with that. And it was just weird stuff like that would happen whenever I was doing something with her. I kind of saw that as like a sign from the universe in a way. But there was just this thing about her. Sexually, not everything was good there, but there was something about her that did it for me. But because I wasn't into her being fat, so like her being overweight was an issue for a couple of reasons. One, she wasn't in good enough shape for the sex. Fortunately, I was doing most of the work for her. Because she would sweat, man. She'd be breathing and sweating. And she was self-conscious about her body, so she never wanted to, she would wear like some kind of dress or something. She'd pull it down and pull it up, so it would always be wrapped around her midsection, which was not a turn on at all. But the funny thing was she turned me on so much that I was constantly ready. She made a comment one time, so I think something like 4 hours had gone by one night, and I was just like, she thought I was on a pill or something, and it wasn't that at all. It was just her. There was something there. But the bummer about it was, this is really a lot of information. I don't care, you guys know. But every time we did it, she'd bleed on me a little bit. And it didn't matter. It could be any time of the month. And that always turned me off. That eventually it pushed me away to the point where I just wasn't interested in doing it anymore. Again, is that something I should have been okay with? I don't know. Every once in a while I reach out to her and we talk from time to time. She told me she lost something like 80 pounds, but I haven't seen her since all that happened. I mean, I can imagine her 80 pounds later, she'd be a goddess, physically just to look at. I'm sure. But I couldn't deal with the attitude. And that was the thing, too. Whenever I'd reach out to her, I'd look at what she's posting. And it's just, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of complaining. And this is a problem I have. I'm running into a lot of these women that, because they were pretty and they got the attention, that they may be able to get to a certain point in life based on that. But because they never developed themselves beyond that, they stagnate at a certain point in life. And then you try to talk to them about that, and there's always an excuse as to why they stagnated. And apparently it has nothing to do with them, their choices, or their behavior. And you can't, by the way, you would say, well, why don't you just talk to her about this stuff? Women will say, they want a man to tell them the truth. No, you don't. No, you don't. I know this woman well, spent a lot of intimate time with her. She would just get defensive, turn it around on me. I'm the one with the problem. Whatever, which I'm not saying I don't have any issues. I got plenty. You're listening to it. These are my own issues here. It was just a weird thing. So I think that even her daughter is kind of estranged from her at this point. And it's because of her. She doesn't realize that her behavior pushes people away. So if there's a lesson here, that's a big one. If you find that people that you were once close with, I mean, even your own family, has distanced themselves from you, you could sit there all day and blame them for it. But you ought to take stock in yourself there and think about, like, what could my own behavior, what is it about myself that has led this person to not want to interact with me anymore? All right. I'm going to say this video probably is as good as I thought it was going to be in my mind. A lot of it is because I had this and I was in a really good mood earlier. I had this pancake. I got a little full. And then I got here and it's very warm here right now. And I really hate being, I am not built for heat. I'm a thickly built, shorter guy, 5'9". I'm more designed for cooler temperatures. I'm in the wrong place, man. So, anyhow, there was a lot of good there. This is the reason why I kind of bring it up. I tend to only focus on the good. I don't like to focus on the negative. In the moment, sometimes the negative will overwhelm me. At least I see it that way now, but I suppose it's there for a reason. It's keeping me away for other reasons that maybe I can reflect on later and go, oh, that's why, which is what I'm doing now. But the whole thing with seeing things as a positive or negative when you're going through it and then reflecting on it later, when I think of her or anybody else, and there's going to be more of these, I remember the positive stuff. And then as I'm remembering the positive stuff, I'm like, oh, wait a second. There was also this and that and this and that. And I think that's the stuff that I kind of want to share with you guys because this helps some of you out. Again, the 15 girls that actually watch this channel, I get notes from. And it's always like, oh, you're so handsome. Why are you single? And, well, this is going to basically be an explanation of why this one didn't work out. And stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole litany of them. And in the end, what we're going to realize is maybe it all is me. I don't know. Look, some of these people are still around. I still talk to some of these people. Some of the women I'll probably tell you guys stories about are people that I'm still friends with, but now they're with somebody. Sometimes the person that they're with is also a friend of mine, and I've discussed it with the woman, and she never told that guy that we ever hooked up. So, I don't want to say anything to him. You know what I mean? So I kind of walk on eggshells. People say all the time, you should write a book. You got all these stories. Man, if I wrote a book and told the truth, it would destroy a lot of relationships with people. That's a thing. There's a guy that lives here. His name's Anthony. He's an old guy. He's in his 80s. And he worked for Neiman Marcus for decades. And he dressed all the biggest celebrities and became friends with a lot of them. and got to know a lot of personal details about them and their lives. And whenever we talk, I'm a Turner Classic Movies guy. I love old movies, and so I know who a lot of these people are, and we discuss it. He'll tell me some of it, but he always cuts short. And I'm always like, well, tell me more. He's like, I'm not comfortable with it. And it's like, dude, man, you know all these intimate details of all these super famous people who are no longer with us. Even a lot of their families probably even aren't around anymore. This guy's friggin' old. And he'd be the perfect guy to be telling stories, but he won't do it, just out of respect. So even though I am sharing this stuff, I'm trying not to give all the details. If she watches this, she'll know who she is. Hi. You know what the truth is. You know I ain't lying. And one thing I'm not is a liar. Anyhow, that's it. You guys have a great day. Let me know what you think, if you think this is a good idea or not, because I think it could be funny. There's more I could say about her, but like I said, I'm kind of warm. It's about 2:20, and I want to get some work done. So this is just dipping the toe in the water with this first one here. The One That Got Away, episode 1. Hope you enjoyed it. Come back again. Be good to one another. Bye.